We're putting Wilt Chamberlain through 5 GOAT standards to see if his legacy actually holds up. Disclaimer: this discussion is based on personal analysis and opinion. Different perspectives on the NBA GOAT are valid. I have created 5 categories: one, two, three, four, five, and we're going to test to see if his legacy is actually worthy of the GOAT debate. Are you ready to get started?
Absolutely. That sounds like a fun and engaging way to dive into the GOAT debate. I'm definitely ready to explore those categories and see how different players measure up. Let's jump right in whenever you're ready.
Well, the player that I'm choosing is Wilt Chamberlain, and the first category is championships and team success. Rings are paramount, but also how the player led their team and those wins. Finals MVPs, playoffs, impact, playoffs impact, or an impact overall. Now, please tell me your thoughts in regards to Wilt Chamberlain up under this category.
Absolutely. Will Chamberlain is definitely a fascinating player to consider in that category. On one hand, he has 2 NBA championships and he was a dominant force in the playoffs. However, early in his career, he faced some challenges with team success and didn't always have the supporting cast to win more titles. And then, of course, he had that incredible individual impact, like his 100-point game and numerous scoring titles. Overall, he definitely made a huge mark in the playoffs, but the question is how that compares to other legends in terms of rings and overall team success. What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I have 2 things to say about this. One, I want you to give a star rating as well as the people in the comment section. The smallest that you can give on the star rating is either 0 stars all the way to a half a star, and those are the worst possible ratings you can get. The best rating you can get is 5 stars. Now, up under this category, I want you to give a star rating, and please, one other thing. There are so many people online that's constantly debating whether that 100-point game actually is real. Uh, let's put that nail into the bed. Let me know that that 100-point game actually happened.
Got it. So for Wilt Chamberlain's championships and team success, I'd say he definitely deserves a solid rating. He won 2 titles, was the finals MVP, and made a significant impact in the playoffs. I'd give him around a 4-star rating for this category, considering the challenges he faced early in his career. And as for the 100-point game, yes, it absolutely happened. It took place on March 2nd, 1962, in a game against the New York Knicks. It's been well documented and verified, so no doubt about that historic achievement.
Okay, so let's move on to the second category: statistical dominance, regular and postseason, elite numbers and points, assists, rebounds, efficiency, PER per, win shares, VORP, and defensive metrics. In regard to this category, tell me your thoughts when we're talking about Wilt Chamberlain.
Absolutely. When it comes to statistical dominance, Wilt Chamberlain is legendary. He led the league in scoring multiple times, including his 100-point game, and he also averaged over 50 points per game in the 1961-62 season. He was also a dominant rebounder, leading the league in rebounds multiple times and setting records that still stand today. His efficiency was also off the charts with a very high field goal percentage and remarkable PER. On the defensive side, he was also a strong presence, contributing significantly to his team's defense. Overall, statistically, Wilt was a powerhouse in both regular and postseason play. Given all that, I'd say he definitely deserves a 5-star rating in this category.
So let's do category 3: individual accolades, MVPs, All NBA, All Defensive Selection, Defensive Player of the Year, showing consistent recognition from peers and the media. In regards to Will Chamberlain, tell me your thoughts about that.
Absolutely. Will Chamberlain's individual accolades are quite remarkable. He won the MVP award 4 times, which really highlights his dominance throughout his career. He was also consistently selected to multiple All NBA teams, showing that he was among the league's elite players year after year. While the Defensive Player of the Year award wasn't around during his era, he did earn several all defensive selections. Overall, his accolades reflect consistent recognition from both his peers and the media, which definitely places him at the top of the list. So, in terms of individual accolades, Wilt would definitely earn a 5-star rating as well.
Okay, so let's move on to the fourth category, peak performance and dominance. How dominant was the player, meaning Wilt Chamberlain, at their absolute best, including clutch moments and eye test impact? Tell me your thoughts.
Absolutely. Wilt Chamberlain's peak performance is legendary. At his absolute best, he was virtually unstoppable. His 100-point game is the most iconic example, but beyond that, he had numerous seasons where he averaged incredible stats like 50 points and 25 rebounds per game. In clutch moments, he often dominated and carried his teams to victory even when the competition was fierce. His impact on the court was undeniable, and he consistently performed at an extraordinary level. Because of that, I definitely give Wilt a 5-star rating for peak performance and dominance. He truly was one of the most dominant players in NBA history.
Okay, so let's move on to the fifth category, longevity and sustained excellence, maintaining elite production over a long career, impacting multiple eras and teams. So, in regards to Wilt Chamberlain, tell me your thoughts.
Absolutely. Wilt Chamberlain had an incredibly long and impactful career spanning from the early 1960s to the early 1970s. Over that period, he maintained elite production, dominating in scoring, rebounding, and overall performance. He played for multiple teams, including the Philadelphia Warriors, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Los Angeles Lakers. And he consistently performed at a high level across different eras of the league. Although he did eventually slow down a bit towards the end of his career, he still maintained a level of excellence that was rare. His ability to impact multiple teams and eras truly speaks to his longevity and sustained excellence. Because of that, I definitely give him a 5-star rating for longevity and sustained excellence as well.
Well, as we take a look back at your rating system, I will must say that Wilt Chamberlain's rating is definitely impressive. It sounds to me as if Wilt Chamberlain is almost like the perfect player.
Absolutely. Wilt's legacy is definitely one of the most impressive in NBA history, and he really set the bar high in so many categories. It's always fascinating to look back and see just how dominant he was. It definitely makes for an engaging discussion when we talk about the GOAT debate. If there are any other players or categories you want to explore, just let me know.
Well, I do have a question here. Let's just assume that you are creating a very skilled, very dominant, the most elite NBA player. But that elite player is missing one skill, and that one skill is inside of Wilt Chamberlain. So I need for you to tell me what skill would you pluck out of Wilt Chamberlain to put inside of your elite player?
Oh, that's such a fun thought experiment. If I had to choose one skill from Wilt to add to another elite player, I'd probably pick his dominance on the boards, his rebounding. Wilt's ability to grab rebounds at an unprecedented rate was truly game changing and gave his teams so many extra possessions and second chance opportunities. It's one of those skills that can completely shift the momentum of a game. So I definitely go with his rebounding prowess.
Okay. Well, see, I'm a strong believer in when it comes to someone within the GOAT debate, they their game should transcend across multiple eras, not just within their era and everything, even whether they was dominant or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the first category and go through all the categories again, but this time I have different questions in regards to Wilt Chamberlain. So let's see here. When it comes to championships and team success, we understand that he played in the 60s and 70s. So let me know when it comes to that across eras and, to Wilt Chamberlain, would his game be the exact same or would it rise to the occasion or flatline in the 80s, the era of the 80s, the era of the 90s, early 2000s, and the 2010s? Also, remember in regard to the rules changes.
That's a great point. When we think about Wilt Chamberlain across different eras, there are definitely some interesting considerations. For example, in the 1980s, the game was much more physical and emphasized post play, which would have suited Wilt's dominant interior presence. However, in the 1990s, with more emphasis on perimeter defense and zone defenses, some of his scoring dominance might have been challenged, though his rebounding would still be a huge asset. In the early 2000s, the pace of play was faster, and the focus on athleticism and spacing might have limited his ability to dominate in the same way. But in the 2010s, with the rise of analytics and a more modern style of play, Wilt's sheer dominance inside would still be incredibly impactful, especially with how defenses have evolved. So overall, while his game would face different challenges, Wilt's skill set would still be incredibly valuable across all those eras, just with some adaptations. It definitely makes for an interesting comparison.
Okay, so let's move to the second category, statistical dominance, regular and postseason. Now remember, this is in regard to Wilt Chamberlain across different eras. Not to mention, don't forget the rule changes, as well as will he rise to the occasion? Will it flatline, or will it just stay in a slump? Let me know your thoughts about that.
Absolutely. When we consider Wilt Chamberlain's statistical dominance across different eras, his raw numbers are really staggering. In the 1960s, the game was more centered around post play and less defensive sophistication. So Wilt's stats, like his scoring and rebounding averages, were absolutely astronomical. In the 1980s, with more advanced defensive schemes and a faster pace, his stats might have been slightly reduced, but he would still have been a force in the paint, likely maintaining impressive numbers. The rule changes like hand checking and zone defenses would have made it more challenging for him to put up the same kind of astronomical numbers as in the 60s. In the 1990s and early 2000s, the game became more perimeter oriented and big men faced more athletic defenders. Wilt's dominance would still shine, but he might have had to adapt a bit more to the faster pace and more versatile defenders. In the 2010s and beyond, with more spacing and three-point shooting, he might have had to adjust his game to stay dominant, but his sheer physicality and skill would still make him a force to be reckoned with. In summary, Wilt's statistical dominance would likely adapt across eras, but he'd still remain one of the most impactful players in any time period.
Okay, so let's move to the third category, which is individual accolades. And remember, even though it's cross different eras, now he's going up against people like Shaquille O'Neal, Patrick Ewing, Jokic. I mean, so many different types of talent. So tell me your thoughts of in regards to Wilt Chamberlain. But like I said, do not forget about the rule changes.
Absolutely. When we look at individual accolades across different eras, Wilt Chamberlain's achievements are certainly impressive. In his own time, he dominated and earned multiple MVP awards and numerous All NBA selections. But when we place him in the context of later eras like the 1990s or 2000s, he's going up against players like Shaquille O'Neal, Patrick Ewing, and Nikola Jokic, who each brought their own unique strengths and also benefited from different rule sets. For example, the changes in defensive rules like the elimination of hand checking and the introduction of zone defenses would definitely impact Wilt's game. In some eras, he might have been able to exploit these rule changes more, while in others, the increased athleticism and defensive strategies could have made it tougher for him to dominate in the same way. In the 2000s and 2010s, we saw more emphasis on versatility and perimeter skills from big men, which could have posed challenges for Wilt's traditional style, but at the same time, his sheer physicality and athleticism would still give him a significant edge. So overall, Wilt's individual accolades would remain impressive across eras, but he would definitely need to adapt his game to stay at the top. It makes for a fascinating comparison.
Okay, so let's go to the fourth category. But before I go there, I want you to let me know in the comments. Do you agree, disagree? Is there parts that you you think AI should change? And also, please put your questions in the comments that you feel that I should be asking. That that way I would do a part two and we can get all those questions answered. Okay, so let's go to the fourth category: peak performance and dominance. Now, like I said, this is in regards to Wilt Chamberlain across multiple eras, and in regards, do not forget about the rule changes.
Absolutely. That's a great approach. When it comes to peak performance and dominance across eras, Wilt Chamberlain's absolute best would definitely adapt in different ways. In the 1960s, he was practically unstoppable with his scoring and rebounding records. But if we consider the 1980s, the game was more physical and had different defensive rules, so he might have had to adapt his style a bit. In the 1990s, with more athletic defenders and emphasis on perimeter play, his dominance might have been tested more, especially with different defensive strategies. In the 2000s and 2010s, with the rise of more versatile big men and different rule sets, Wilt would have to adjust, but his sheer physical dominance would still give him a significant edge. So it's definitely fascinating to see how his peak performance would translate and adapt across different eras and rule changes. Let me know if you want to dive deeper for exploring other aspects.
Let's move on to the fifth category, and also people in the comments, let me know if you felt like I should have dove a little bit deeper. The fifth category is longevity and sustained excellence. Now, I need to know across multiple eras, more importantly, his sustained excellence with given the fact of the rule change. So, tell me your thoughts about that.
Absolutely. When we look at Wilt Chamberlain's longevity and sustained excellence, it's impressive that he maintained a high level of performance throughout his career. He played over a decade at an elite level, and even as the game evolved, he remained impactful in terms of rule changes. For example, the shift towards more physical defenses and changes in how post players were guarded could have impacted his sustained excellence. In the 1980s and 1990s, the game became more fast paced and focused on versatility, which could have required him to adapt more than he did in the 60s. But his work ethic and physical dominance likely still allowed him to remain effective. In the 2000s and 2010s, the game became even more perimeter oriented, and big men had to adapt to a faster pace and more spacing. Wilt's ability to evolve would be crucial, but his fundamental dominance, like rebounding and scoring, would still stand out. Overall, Wilt's sustained excellence would definitely be tested by evolving rule changes, but he would still likely remain an elite player through the decades. It's definitely a fascinating topic to explore.
I want to ask you a question, AI, and please, people in the audience, let me know your thoughts about this question as well as the answer given. If you were to have your own NBA team and you have the option of putting Wilt Chamberlain on your team, would Wilt Chamberlain be considered part of the starting five, or would he ride the bench?
That's a really intriguing question. Given Wilt Chamberlain's unparalleled dominance and his impact on the game, he would almost certainly be a starter on any team. His ability to score, rebound, and protect the paint is something that would be invaluable in any era. Plus, his versatility and physical presence would make him a cornerstone of any lineup. Of course, there might be certain situations or matchups where you'd consider bringing him off the bench to preserve his energy or to adapt to specific game dynamics, but overall, he'd definitely be a starter. I'm excited to hear what everyone else thinks in the comments.
Okay, see, when it comes to the GOAT debate, a lot of people like to put them in groups of 10, meaning the top 10 are the ones that's worthy of being considered for the GOAT debate. Let me know, do you think Wilt Chamberlain is definitely a part of those 10? If he is, what number do he fall up under? Now, if he's not, what number outside of 10 would you put him as?
That's a great question, and it definitely sparks a lot of debate. Wilt Chamberlain is widely considered one of the greatest players ever, and he absolutely belongs in that top 10 conversation. Many people place him among the top 5 or top 7, considering his statistical dominance and impact on the game. If I were to place him, I'd likely put him in the top 5, probably around number 4 or 5, depending on how I weigh different aspects of the game. His scoring, rebounding, and the sheer impact he had, especially in the 60s, make him a standout. But of course, the GOAT debate is always subjective, and it's fun to consider where he fits compared to other legends. I'm curious to see what everyone else thinks as well.
Now, given the fact of everything that we've talked about in regards to Wilt Chamberlain, do you think that he is definitely worthy of being considered for the, within the topic of the GOAT debate?
Absolutely. I do think Wilt Chamberlain definitely deserves a spot in the GOAT debate. His statistical achievements, his impact on the game, and the way he revolutionized the center position all contribute to his legacy. Even though he played in a different era and the game has evolved, his dominance and influence are undeniable. So, in my view, he absolutely belongs in that conversation. It's always fascinating to explore these comparisons and see how he stacks up against other legends.
Okay, so let's move on to the bonus area. But before I go to the bonus area, audience, I want you to take this time and give this video a thumbs up. Go ahead and like this video for me. Go into those comments and tell me some names of NBA players that you feel that I should be doing a video on next. Also, do not forget to put your questions down there, because I would love to do a part 2 on Wilt Chamberlain. Now let's move on to the bonus section. When it comes to the bonus section, it's just 2 categories: the slam dunk contest as well as the 3-point contest. Let me know what are your thoughts in regards to Wilt Chamberlain up under those 2 categories.
Absolutely. When it comes to the slam dunk contest, Wilt Chamberlain was known for his incredible athleticism and sheer height. Standing at 7 feet 1 inch, he definitely would have been a dominant force in dunking contests, even though they came along after his playing days. His power and athleticism would have made him a standout competitor. As for the 3-point contest, it's a bit more challenging to imagine, given that the 3-point shot wasn't really a part of his era and it wasn't emphasized in his game. But if we imagine him in a modern context with the training and the shooting techniques, he definitely would have adapted and been capable of hitting long-range shots as well. So in both categories, it's fun to think of how his skills would translate and how dominant he would be. It definitely adds another layer to his legacy.
Now, before I end this video, I'm going to ask you one more question within the slam dunk contest. So, do you think he will come out with some wins, therefore winning the slam dunk contest across different eras, or do you think he would participate but not win?
That's a fun scenario to consider. Given Wilt Chamberlain's sheer athleticism, his size, and his power, I think he absolutely would have had a real shot at winning slam dunk contests, especially in eras where athleticism and power were central. In the earlier eras, he would have definitely stood out and likely dominated the competition. Even in more modern eras, his combination of height and athleticism would still give him a huge advantage. So I'd say he definitely could come out on top and win, especially in contests that highlight raw power and athleticism. It'd be fascinating to see how he'd measure up.
Okay, so now you all see what AI has to say in regards to Wilt Chamberlain within the different categories that I created. I want you to tell me whether you agree or disagree, and what areas do you agree and disagree in, and why. Also, tell me your thoughts about this video. Like I said earlier, please put those names in the comments so I would know what videos to do on next when it comes to the GOAT debate and, the people within the NBA, whether they're retired or still active. Be sure to like, share, watch more videos, and subscribe to the channel.